Well, thank you for being here today. Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui. Since the COVID-19 crisis began, our focus has been on people, on protecting people's health, on making sure people can get the care that they need, and making sure that despite the unprecedented disruption to our economy, that people have money for the essentials. Depuis le début de la crise de COVID-19, notre priorité, c'est les gens. On protège la santé des gens, on s'assure qu'ils ont accès aux soins dont ils ont besoin, et malgré cette perturbation sans précédent dans notre économie, que les gens aient assez d'argent pour se procurer les essentiels. I want to thank the many people who've made sacrifices to stay at home, and also the many businesses that have temporarily shut down to protect us all from the spread of COVID-19. I know that's not been easy, but nothing's more valuable than our health. As we've said from the very beginning, we will use all tools that we have to help Canadians get through this. We introduced the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. I think you may have heard that applications opened on Monday, and millions of Canadians have now applied. We announced the Canada Emergency Business Account, which will provide small businesses and nonprofits with interest-free loans of up to $40,000. And 25% of this loan will be forgivable, up to $10,000, if it's paid back by December 31st, 2022. Today we're announcing that applications will begin to be available for this loan starting tomorrow. Loans will be available through large and small banks, as well as through credit unions as the program unfolds. Please reach out to your financial institution over the phone or online for more details on their application process. Nous avons annoncé le compte d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes qui accordera aux petites entreprises et aux organismes à but non lucratif des prêts sans intérêt pouvant atteindre $40,000 et 25% de ce prêt sera non remboursable jusqu'à la hauteur de $10,000 s'il est remboursé avant le 31 décembre 2022. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons que le processus d'application pour les entreprises commencera à être disponible à partir de demain. Les prêts seront disponibles auprès des grandes et petites banques ainsi que des coopératives de crédit. Contactez votre institution financière par téléphone ou en ligne pour plus de détails sur ce processus d'application. And last week, we announced the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which will provide a 75% wage subsidy to employers that have been significantly impacted by COVID-19. It'll be retroactive to March 15th and provide up to $847 per week per employee. Throughout this, I've been in constant communication with businesses across Canada. La semaine dernière, nous avons annoncé la subvention salariale d'urgence du Canada qui donnera une subvention salariale de 75% aux employeurs qui ont été touchés de façon importante par le COVID-19. Elle sera rétroactive en date de 15 mars et fournirait jusqu'à $845 par semaine par employé. J'ai été en communication constante avec des entreprises à travers le Canada. Notre gouvernement comprend que pour protéger notre économie, nous devons prendre des mesures pour protéger les emplois des Canadiens. The wage subsidy would apply to employers in all sectors, except in the public sector. Businesses big and small, charities and nonprofits that are significantly impacted by COVID-19 can apply for help to keep their employees. The eligibility criteria we announced last week, that it would be available for employers who saw a 30% decline compared to the same month last year, allowed us to capture a broad swath of affected employers and give Canadians much-needed confidence that their jobs are safe. But we also recognize that not all businesses are alike and not all jobs are alike. New businesses and startups might not have a year's worth of earnings to look back on. A high-growth company that's created good jobs in the past year might not show significant decline since last year, but its growth may be significantly off track as a result of COVID-19, jeopardizing its ability to keep its workers. A shop that might have been doing swift business until mid-March, at which point people across Canada quickly reoriented their lives, staying at home to stop the spread of the virus, may have a difficult time. Nonprofits and charities are seeing the needs for their services go up, but donations in many cases are going down. Today, we're announcing the proposed new details in order to address these realities of different businesses and organizations. Our goal is clear. We want to make sure that employers that have been significantly impacted by COVID-19 get the help they need to support their workers through this crisis. First, given that the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis were still evolving during the first half of March 2020, we're proposing that for March, the revenue test will be 15%. In other words, businesses will need to show that during that period, their revenue went down by 15%. For April and May, the revenue test will continue to be at 30%. Employers will have to apply for each month and attest to the drop each month. We're also proposing two possible benchmarks for employers. They'll be able to compare revenues to their revenues last year, or alternatively, they can use an average of revenues in January and February of this year and compare March, April, and May revenues to that same average. Employers would calculate revenues through one of two accounting methods, either the accrual method or the cash method. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons de nouveaux détails pour la subvention salariale afin que cette dernière réponde aux réalités des différentes entreprises. Premièrement, étant donné que les impacts économiques de la crise de COVID-19 évoluent au cours de la première moitié du mois de mars 2020, nous proposons que, pour ce mois, le test de baisse de revenus soit de 15%. Pour les mois d'avril et mai, le test des revenus sera toujours une baisse de 30%. Nous proposons également deux balises possibles pour les employeurs. Ils pourront comparer leurs revenus au même mois l'année dernière, ou ils pourront utiliser une moyenne des revenus de janvier et février de cette année et comparer les revenus de mars, avril et mai à cette moyenne. Les employeurs calculeront les revenus selon l'une des deux méthodes comptables, soit la méthode de la comptabilité d'exercice, soit la méthode de la comptabilité de casse. By offering these different methods of calculating revenues, more employers and employees will get the help that they need. We know that times are tough, but we're encouraging employers to do all that they can to top up their employees' pay to 100% of pre-crisis pay levels. We all need to do our part to help each other through this challenge. And in order to make it simpler and cost-effective for employers to rehire workers, the government is proposing to refund employer contributions to employment insurance, the Canada Pension Plan, the Quebec Parental Insurance Plan, and the Quebec Pension Plan as well. We're also proposing flexibility for nonprofits and charities because we recognize that those organizations are each facing their own funding pressures at this time. And so we're proposing that when charities and nonprofits are calculating their revenue tests, they be allowed to choose whether or not to include government funding in that test. Et afin de rendre les processus de réembauche des travailleurs plus simples pour les employeurs, le gouvernement propose de rembourser les cotisations des employeurs à l'assurance d'emploi, au régime de pension de Canada, au régime québécois d'assurance parentale et au régime de rente de Québec. Et nous proposons d'être flexibles avec les organisations à but non lucratif et de bienfaisance, car nous savons que vous êtes confrontés à des difficultés de financement en ce moment. C'est pourquoi nous proposons que, lorsque les organismes de bienfaisance et à but non lucratif calculent leurs revenus pour savoir s'ils sont admissibles ou non au programme, ils soient autorisés à choisir d'inclure ou non le financement gouvernemental. Canadians, we know, are honest and responsible people who look after each other and play by the rules. However, we're making sure that anybody who tries to skirt the rules faces significant consequences. To begin with, applicants will have to designate someone with control over their finances to make sure that their claims are appropriate. Any business that receives the benefit and is discovered to be ineligible will have to repay the full amount. Anyone caught abusing the program could face penalties up to 225% of what they've received and up to 5 years in prison. This is a high-trust program, but we will not tolerate abuses. Nous veillons à ce que les gens qui tentent de contourner les règles s'exposent à des conséquences importantes. Toute personne qui abuse du programme pourrait incurrir des sanctions allant jusqu'à 225% du montant qu'ils ont reçu et jusqu'à 5 ans de prison. In this time of crisis, let us make sure that we do not let down the workers who are counting on us to support them. As we navigate these uncertain times, our government will continue listening to the very real needs of Canadians. In the face of an historic public health crisis, we're providing historic support. These are the largest economic measures of our lifetime. Now's the time for everyone to come together and to work together. Businesses who are rehiring their workers, but also parliamentarians. Canadians are counting on us during these times. We cannot let them down. Our government will continue to do whatever it takes to support the workers and the businesses that make our economy strong. We'll do this because we know that when this crisis passes, and it will pass, that Canada's economy will bounce back quickly and we'll be able to keep building an even better Canada. Thank you very much. And now I'll pass it to my colleague, Mary Ng, Minister of Small Businesses and International Trade.
Thank you so very much, Minister Morneau, Bill, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I've spent the last week since our original wage subsidy announcement talking to businesses of all sizes, large and small. I've been on calls, video conferences, live Q&As to reach thousands of businesses and associations to answer their questions and to address their concerns, and I will continue to do that each and every day as we go through this together. And that's my commitment to you. What I've learned from these interactions has helped to inform the improvements that we have made to the wage subsidy in just a week's time. Your ideas, your concerns, your feedback have had a direct line to me and our government. Because when we say we're in this together, we mean it. The changes we have outlined today will mean more flexibility and support for new businesses, high-growth companies, startups, and not-for-profits. I want to be clear on this. We're moving in real time. Our job is to support you as fast as we possibly can, but our job isn't done until those supports are meeting your needs. I'm paying particular attention to Canada's small businesses in this country, the backbone of our economy, and the very heart of our communities, from the corner store to the local restaurant to the tech startup or the small manufacturing company and so many more. We know that things are extremely tough right now for you and for your employees. We want you to know that every aspect of this wage subsidy has been designed to preserve jobs, to keep businesses afloat, and help you prime for recovery. Part of this effort is to help you keep your team in place, because we agree that you can gain more ground more quickly and be more successful if you have preserved your team throughout this ordeal, readying you for time of recovery when that time comes. The wage subsidy is in place to directly assist you with this challenge. So let me end with an earnest message to Canadian business owners. Thank you. I know this is hard, but we really have your back. Keep pushing us. Keep telling us what works, what doesn't work. We're in a brand new world. It's difficult and I know it's complex. I hear it from you. I hear that it's frustrating. But if we keep talking and we keep working together to find these solutions, we're going to weather this storm and we will come out of this the other side together. Over to my colleague, Minister Navdeep Bains. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Ng, and thank you very much, Minister Morneau. I too want to echo my thanks to the business community, to industry. In particular, I want to thank them for stepping up in a big way once again for our mobilization efforts, first and foremost, and really helping us make the essential equipment that we need, the personal protective equipment that we need for frontline healthcare workers and to protect them against the fight for COVID-19. I also want to echo the comments that my colleagues made with respects to businesses. We hear you, we're listening, we have our ears to the ground, we're engaged on this file, we're seized with this issue, and we're making changes to assist you and to help you. And today's announcement underscores our commitment to high growth firms as well. This has been a commitment of our government since 2015. When we advanced our Innovation and Skills Plan, it was designed with the purpose to help Canadian companies scale and grow and succeed, not only within Canada, but globally as well. We've invested in talent and in capital, and we're going to redouble our efforts as we navigate ourselves through this crisis and come out the other side and start to see the recovery. I can tell you right now, we continue to have your backs, and this is important because this is about jobs. This is about Canadians. This wage subsidy underscores and highlights the importance of retaining jobs. It's about steady income, and it's about confidence. Confidence in the economy and confidence that we will recover. I can tell you right now that we are in this together, and we will get through this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we will be taking questions from the journalists. Nous prendrons des questions des journalistes. Please limit your interactions to one question and one follow-up. Modérateur, c'est à vous. Laurie?
Thank you. We will now take questions from the telephone lines. Please press star one at this time if you have a question. There will be a brief pause while the participants register for questions. Thank you for your patience. And the first question is from David Youngren from Reuters News, Ottawa. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Minister. First off, the expansion of the requirement that businesses only have to show a 15% drop rather than a 30% drop revenue in March. Do you have a direct spending figure in dollars for that? Extra direct spending?
So thanks, David. What we did last week, of course, was to bring out the program and give a broad understanding of what the costs were. Our estimate was at that time $71 billion, an enormous expenditure on behalf of Canadians. What we've seen is with the changes we've made, we expect it to be about $73 billion, and that's primarily driven by the fact that we've allowed employers to bring people back, and we said that we will reimburse them on employment insurance or Canada Pension Plan or Quebec Pension Plan. That's actually driving some change for those employees that come back but aren't actively working. The decision to allow for a 15% decline in revenues in March to March was really driven by the fact that we see that that's really this COVID-19 hit in the middle of March, so it didn't fundamentally change our calculations.
And secondly, in oil-producing provinces, if I'm a company that's seen my revenues go through the floor because of low oil, am I still able to claim this, or do I have to prove it's directly related to something to do with COVID?
For companies in Canada that have experienced the revenue declines that we're outlining, that significant decline, they will be eligible. So for those employers in the energy sector that are seeing big declines, both as a result of COVID-19 and the OPEC decisions, they will be eligible for this, and it will provide significant support for those organizations like it will for organizations across the country.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Laura McNaughton from CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Yes, this question is for Minister Morneau. Air Canada, they announced today that they'll be using money from the federal wage subsidy program to hire back 16,500 laid-off workers. I'm wondering what your reaction is to Air Canada hiring back these employees, and is this what the wage subsidy program is intended to be used for, to help large corporations like Air Canada?
I was very encouraged to see Air Canada's decision. This is exactly what we're trying to do. For businesses large and small, we're trying to make sure that they retain their attachment with their employees. So Air Canada bringing back those employees is critically important for their business, I know. It's critically important for thousands of people. And it's in that context that I want to say we really need the other parties in Parliament to move forward and support this. We've had both constructive comments and support from the Bloc Québécois, but for the other parties that have said that we need to get money to businesses so they can subsidize those employees quickly, we need them to support us and to get it done quickly so that we can actually deliver the funds required. It's critically important. I can't say how urgent it is because there's tens of thousands of employees like these employees at Air Canada that are counting on us so that they can be attached to their employer and so that they can get up to that $847 per week through their employer's wage subsidy.
Do you have a follow-up? No?
Thank you. The next question is from Hélène Buzzetti from Le Devoir. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Morneau. Je voulais justement continuer dans cette veine. On entend que les négociations avec les partis d'opposition concernant votre projet de loi bloquent à cause des demandes du Parti conservateur. Là, vous avez eu l'air de dire aussi que le NPD pose problème. Est-ce que c'est exact? Et qu'est-ce qui vous dérange dans les demandes des conservateurs et peut-être du NPD dans tout ça?
Donc, nous continuons d'avoir des discussions avec les autres partis. La chose importante pour moi, nous n'avons pas eu des questions au sujet de notre subvention salariale. Nous avons proposé, par exemple, d'avoir plus de accountabilité avec un parlement virtuel. Ça, c'est très important. Donc, à mon avis, c'est urgent. C'est urgent d'avoir un accord. C'est urgent d'avoir le policy important pour les employés à travers le Canada. Donc, j'espère que les autres partis considèrent leur position pour accélérer notre processus.
Mais vous n'avez pas vraiment répondu à la question. Le Parti conservateur et le NPD posent-ils problème? Est-ce que c'est eux qui font en sorte que ce projet de loi-là, que l'avis de retour de la Chambre des communes n'a pas encore été donné?
À mon avis, ce que je peux dire, nous avons eu des discussions importantes avec tous les partis. Nous avons eu des suggestions constructives et un niveau de support de le Bloc québécois. Mais encore, nous restons en conversation avec les autres partis. Et je voudrais dire, c'est nécessaire d'avoir un accord aussitôt possible parce que ça, c'est les choses importantes pour les compagnies et plus important pour les gens à travers notre pays qui veulent avoir la subvention salariale aussitôt que possible. Ça, c'est très important. Et c'est pour ça que nous devons continuer avec les conversations, mais qu'une conclusion est nécessaire.
Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Raymond Filion from TVA. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, M. Morneau. Sur la même veine, on ne sait pas encore à quel moment le Parlement va siéger pour approuver la subvention salariale. Ma question à vous, est-ce qu'un délai risque de retarder l'entrée en vigueur du programme?
Oui, il y a toujours un risque. Ça, c'est la raison que nous devons avoir l'accord aussitôt que possible. À notre avis, c'est nécessaire d'avoir la subvention salariale aussitôt que possible. Pour les entreprises qui veulent comprendre leur situation, ils veulent avoir la législation. Ça, c'est important. Mais le policy, c'est très important de considérer ce que nous avons fait. On a fait une décision où un employé va avoir 75% de leur rémunération jusqu'à $847. Ça, c'est très important pour eux. Et c'est pour ça que nous devons avoir un accord. Et si ça prend plus de temps, ça va être plus difficile pour les gens et bien sûr plus difficile pour les compagnies. C'est urgent.
Alors, pour que le programme entre en vigueur dans 2 ou 3 semaines, comme c'est ce que vous nous avez dit, à quel moment le Parlement doit avoir approuvé le programme?
À mon avis, c'est urgent. Je voudrais avoir un accord aussitôt que possible. Je ne peux pas être certain aux dates, mais ce que je peux dire, chaque compagnie maintenant considère leur position. Et s'ils n'ont pas un niveau de certitude, ils vont avoir une possibilité de faire une décision différente. C'est pour ça que nous devons avoir un accord et avec ça, les compagnies vont faire les décisions où ils peuvent garder et protéger leurs employés et protéger la possibilité d'avoir jusqu'à $847. Ça, c'est la raison que c'est urgent. Ça, c'est pourquoi nous devons avoir un accord avec les partis dans le Parlement. Et j'espère qu'ils vont considérer leur position aussitôt que possible.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Thank you. The next question is from Navdeep from La Presse Canadienne. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Morneau. J'essaie de comprendre les chiffres. Si on passe de 71 milliards à seulement 73 milliards, et parce que vous décidez de rembourser les cotisations d'assurance emploi, etc., mais pourtant vous rendez la subvention plus accessible en baissant la barre à 15 %. Est-ce que c'est parce que vous n'aviez pas assez de preneurs au départ pour ce que vous avez offert la semaine dernière? Est-ce qu'il n'y avait pas assez d'entreprises qui étaient prêtes à réembaucher et à profiter de votre subvention?
Comme j'ai dit, la semaine passée, nous avons annoncé le programme, l'approche pour la subvention salariale avec une sens de le prix, 71 milliards de dollars, avec les augmentations, les améliorations de le programme cette année, avec le conseil des associations, des compagnies pendant les dernières semaines pour améliorer la situation pour les compagnies qui sont dans une position où ils ont un niveau de croissance très haut, ou pour les organisations d'une but non lucrative. Donc maintenant, nous pourrons être plus précis avec un coût de 73 milliards de dollars. C'est un programme très important pour protéger les gens. Et ce que je veux dire, le 73 milliards de dollars vont aller aux gens, aux employés à travers notre pays. C'est pour ça que c'est très urgent, parce que je sais que les gens ont maintenant un niveau d'anxiété, un niveau d'anxiété à cause de leur situation, et on doit avoir la subvention salariale aussitôt que possible pour eux.
But Minister, my question is, did you not have any takers for the first version of this, which was actually the second version of this? Did you not have enough companies interested, and that's why you changed the criteria?
Not at all. What we've done is we've made sure that the criteria are such that for those companies that said this wouldn't quite fit me, we make sure that it fits them. So in a huge majority, the program was already capturing any employer who had been experiencing a significant reduction in their revenues because of COVID-19. And this is just making sure that we capture those high growth companies, the not-for-profits that have revenue coming from government, or companies that maybe experience revenue declines just starting in the middle of March, because that's when the closures started happening most significantly. So we think that, like with all of the programs we're putting in place, we need to be dynamic. We need to recognize that as this challenge is confronting Canadians, our policies also need to confront this challenge. And each week we're thinking about how we can ensure that we do that in a way that gives people confidence that they can face up to this, confidence that they'll be able to get out of this challenge with themselves and their families intact.
Very quickly on that, just to build on what Minister Morneau said, the additions and the changes that we identified today really reflect high growth firms as well. We as a government have been focusing on helping companies scale and grow, and we recognize there's companies that have demonstrated 20% growth year over year for 3 years in a row, both growth in terms of their revenues and also growth in terms of their employees that may not necessarily have been eligible under the previous criteria. So this is more expensive. This is designed to do more, not less, help more businesses, not less. We have thousands and thousands of high growth firms across the country that will benefit from these changes. And that's the objective that we wanted to communicate today, is to say not that this program was not generous, but we're making it even more expansive and more helpful to Canadians right across the country, particularly focusing on high growth firms.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from David Aiken from Global News. Please go ahead.
Minister, are you there? Just want to make sure I'm unmuted. There we go. Whoop, I want to take up that too. Minister, thank you very much for the question. I just want to switch topics a little bit to talk about savings. Canada is not necessarily a great nation of savers, and that's been the way it is for a while. But I wonder if you've considered letting Canadians withdraw some savings from, say, a RRSP or a TIFSA, or I'm not sure what, without getting taxed. In other words, say you get a lump sum of, take $2,000 out of your RRSP without getting taxed. Has there been any consideration to allowing Canadians to tap into savings and be forgiven the tax on it?
Well, thank you, David, for the question. Our approach has been to consider all potential ways that we can support Canadians during this time. You've seen that we've been extraordinarily expansive. We've now announced measures that are going to directly support Canadians of about $107 billion, as well as tax deferrals that are another $85 billion or so. These are the largest single decisions that have been taken since World War II. We're looking at all ways that we can do things that are directly putting money back into people's pockets. Some of the things that we've done are in line with what you just asked, allowing seniors to not have to take as much money out in their registered retirement income fund, recognizing the decline in the stock market. So we're going to keep thinking about how we can support people. The measures that you talked about are not things that are currently on our agenda, but obviously we've made enormous decisions to support people directly, and we're looking forward to getting these policies out. You've seen that now millions, I think we've passed 3 million people have taken up the Canada Emergency Response Benefit this week. I think you're going to see firms, you heard that Air Canada is deciding to use this wage subsidy. You're going to see firms do that very rapidly once we get Parliament to approve this in a way that gives them confidence. And that means we'll be supporting literally millions upon millions of Canadians with programs so that they can get through this challenge and have enough money for their essentials.
Thank you for that. And I maybe just to think a bit more broadly and thinking a bit further down the road once we start to get into a recovery, governments, your government and lots of previous governments have often struggled with the idea that Canadians have not necessarily been savers. And of course, the low interest rate environment we've had for the last decade or so has not exactly been great to encourage people to save. And I wonder whether or not it would be a priority coming out of this to implement more policies to encourage Canadians to save, or, given that consumer spending is such a driver of economic growth, it will be important for the federal government to encourage Canadians to spend. I wonder if you have some thoughts, again, where we're going once we start to see curves move in the right direction.
We do need to think both about dealing with the urgent and important issues today and about how we get out of this. And we are starting to think about how we build ourselves back to an economy that's seeing strength, that's going to support employment. But right now, we're not at a stage where we're talking about the policies that we might be doing in order to ensure that that happens. We're very much focused on how we protect people getting through this crisis and ensure that the policies that we have are focused on people, but also on this time, so that we can both get people out of this challenge and also allow these policies to be reduced as we get out of it in a way that will support our economic growth. So no decisions on next steps yet, but a continuing focus on how we deal with those people that are challenged, and we will continue, as you've heard the Prime Minister say, to deal with the gaps, the challenges that are presenting themselves, so that we really can ensure that anybody impacted by this has the support they need to get through it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from Kate Elongero from Bloomberg. Please go ahead.
Hello, Minister Morneau. I have a question regarding the Canada's credit rating. I'm wondering if you're concerned about Canada's credit rating, if it's in danger at all given the rising debts due to the unprecedented spending.
Well, thank you. The good news from the standpoint of Canada, from the government finances, is we started off in a very, very strong position. Our debt, as a function of our economy, is not only the lowest among G7 countries, but the less than half of the average. So we're going to keep watching that, of course. We're going to keep ensuring that we make the decisions that will allow us to get out of this. Our view is that we need to make these investments. We need to protect people because that's what's going to allow us to get out of this economic challenge and allow us to start up again in a way that ensures that we have a strong economy. That's the most fundamental thing that we all care about, and also that credit agencies will care about. The strength of the economy, our ability to carry the additional debts that we will have put on in order to support ourselves during this time. And I'm very confident, given the starting point that we have, given the cost of debt right now, and given our ability to get our economy back up and going, that we will continue to be seen as a very, very strong government and continue to have those strong credit ratings that enable us to raise capital when required to support Canadians.
And have you received any feedback from credit rating companies in that regard?
No, we haven't. This is really a time where we're very focused on making the decisions that are appropriate for our economy, but really appropriate for Canadians. And all of our time, and literally all of our time, has been spent on making sure that these policies, like the wage subsidy that we're talking about today, like the emergency response benefit, like the loans for businesses, are tailored and targeted correctly. It's really not a time where we're spending our efforts in talking to international credit rating agencies.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Adam Langenberg from The Wire Report. Please go ahead.
Hi, my question is for Minister Bains. Have you been keeping an eye on how Canada's telecommunication networks are performing during this period? And what's been your response so far?
Well, we're in regular contact with the telecommunication companies. I speak on a regular basis with the CEOs of these companies to understand their current challenges and going forward, what are some of the issues that they may have. Clearly, network capacity is something that has been a challenge, but I'm very proud of the fact that we have some of the best networks in the world, and we're seeing that on full display right now, where people are working from home, where students are doing their homework online, where people are on Netflix, and the networks are able to maintain those sudden spikes in network usage. My understanding is for home internet usage, for example, week-over-week increases sometimes are as high as 60%. So we've got strong, robust networks, but I'm in constant contact with the telecommunication companies to understand if there's any immediate challenges or needs. But so far, so good. But I do also want to acknowledge the field workers and the front lines that are maintaining these networks. They're essential for the fact that we're able to communicate with one another, and I want to thank those workers that are doing so much day in and day out to make sure that we're able to communicate with each other, with our families and loved ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Emily Bergeron from Agence QME. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est pour M. Morneau pour revenir aux négociations avec les partis d'opposition pour un retour du Parlement de façon urgente, comme vous avez dit. Vous avez mentionné que vous avez proposé que le Parlement siège de façon virtuelle pour qu'il y ait une forme peut-être de période de questions. Est-ce qu'on doit comprendre que cette proposition-là a été rejetée?
Je ne peux pas dire que le proposal a été accepté ou rejeté, mais ce que je voudrais dire, et nous pensons que c'est très important d'être accessible. Nous pensons que notre approche, la transparence, est très importante, et nous savons que c'est nécessaire d'être en Parlement avec la considération des autres partis. Ça, c'est important. C'est pour ça que nous avons une considération de comment nous pouvons le faire, et un Parlement qui est virtuel est une option à notre vie qui peut fonctionner. Donc, pour nous, la chose importante est la substance de notre approche pour la subvention salariale. Ça va améliorer la situation des 100 000 personnes à travers le pays ou plus. Donc, c'est très urgent d'avoir le policy, et c'est pour ça que je dis que nous devons avoir un accord aussitôt que possible.
Just to be clear, the disagreements don't seem to be around the salary wage. It seemed to be about other things. Is that correct? And what are the disagreements about?
Well, what I can say is that we've had constructive comments and support from the Bloc Québécois, and we've not heard any disagreements on the substance of the wage subsidy. I think we all realize how important it is, and so from that standpoint, we believe it's important to get back to work, to get this passed, so that we can have the kind of support that Canadians need. We've ensured that we are accountable to other parties. So from my standpoint, it's time to get on with it.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Thank you. The next question is from Glenn McGregor from CTV News. Please go ahead.
I have a question for Minister Morneau. I want to ask you about the credit card relief. You've got an agreement with chartered banks to cut rates for people who are struggling to make their payments. But what about sort of broader relief? Why was that not considered? We still have some of the very high credit card interest rates, and also doesn't really do much to help people who don't qualify for credit cards, who are relying on payday loan companies to bridge their financing from month to month. Are there any further discussions about mandating greater cuts to borrowing rates for average Canadians?
We've been working together over the last number of weeks with the banks to make sure that the banks are supporting their customers, that they're supporting Canadians. We've also, as I mentioned, come to an agreement, and they'll be starting to have the small business loans, 25% of which will be forgivable if small businesses pay those back before the end of 2022. That's going to be starting tomorrow. These are really important conclusions that can support literally hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million small businesses. We've also been pushing them to make sure that they support people who are in a challenging situation. So deferring mortgages was important. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of mortgage deferrals. And dealing with credit card fees was also important for people that are struggling. And so that was why after these discussions, we were pleased to see them cut the rates in half for people who are struggling, and that is critically important. Our role as government, though, will be to support everyone, and that's what we've done through the emergency response benefit and the wage subsidy, making sure that those people who are directly impacted have support. We'll continue to do that. We'll work with the banks, and we'll work with whoever we need to work with to make sure that Canadians can get through this.
Mr. Bains, good news today, obviously, about Air Canada hiring back 16,000 employees, but the industry as a whole in Canada is still really struggling. Can you tell me where we are on an aid package specific to the airline industry?
So to echo the comments made by Minister Morneau, it's great news to see the fact that Air Canada has retained these employees. That was the exact intent of the wage subsidy. It's designed to make sure people have income, that companies can keep people on their payroll, and ultimately this is important as we come through the recovery. So when we're talking about supporting industries and supporting companies, one way to do that is to make sure we have this wage subsidy implemented, and that's why it's important that the other parties support us through this endeavor and avoid the partisan politics and allow us to implement this in a timely manner. But more broadly speaking, we know it's not only the airline industry. If you look at tourism, if you look at oil and gas, if you look at the retail sector, they've been significantly challenged by the recent events. So we're going to have a holistic approach. Our goal is to make sure that overall we have a plan in place, not only for the short-term and immediate needs for Canadians and providing them with income, but also how can we quickly rebound and recover. And that includes support for many sectors across the board. But more importantly, right now our priority is Canadians. And then, of course, we will be putting forward sets of initiatives and ideas and plans to assist different industries, including the airline industry.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. The next question is from James Bradshaw from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Minister Morneau. My question is about the CEBA Small Business Loan Program. I'm wondering, how long will the turnaround time be to disperse those funds to businesses after they apply? We'd reported that the government had considered a 5-day waiting period to do verification on the loans, but was working to shorten that wait to about 2 days. How long should businesses owners expect to wait for those funds?
Thank you. Well, I'm hopeful that those funds will be able to be dispersed quite quickly. And The good news is that we're at a stage where we expect that the large banks in particular will be able to start this approach literally tomorrow, and that means that businesses will be able to go to the current institution they work with, banks, and we're also opening up to credit unions in the days and weeks to come. So that's important, and then they will be able to get the money dispersed once the bank goes through their appropriate their processes. So our hope is that can be within about 2 days after that initial interaction. But it will of course have a little bit of variability depending on the company and on the institution, the financial institution they go to. The objective is to get money in people's hands as quickly as possible so they can deal with the challenges that they have if their business in particular is significantly challenged because of declining revenues.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, as it expands, how broadly do you plan to draw the eligibility for the financial institutions that can offer loans through the CEPA program in terms of smaller banks and credit unions? And for a business that has their main account at a smaller financial institution that's not initially part of it, is there somewhere they can turn to apply?
We're working to expand it as broadly as possible to large and small financial institutions and across credit unions. So that work is ongoing. It will be as expansive as we can get it in those discussions. To the extent that someone finds a challenge with the institution that they're at, of course they will be able to go to another institution. But the main goal is to make it broadly accessible across financial institutions so that the small businesses can get rapid access to capital in a challenging time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, and we will be taking one last question.
Thank you. The last question is from Murad Hamadi from The Logic. Please go ahead.
Ministers Morneau and Bains, you said, my apologies, you said repeatedly today that these changes will benefit high growth firms. Can you specify which changes, which of the three changes specifically will benefit high growth firms? Because we're already hearing from some that say they still don't believe that they're going to qualify based on the revenue requirements.
Well, I'll take it quickly and then pass it over to Navdeep. So what we've made as an important change is initially last week when we came out with this, we said that the test of a decline in revenue would be if the revenue in the March 15th to end of May period this year was 30% less than the similar period last year. And the challenge for that is that if a firm has grown significantly during the course of the last year but experienced a decline in the last couple of months, that they might still have revenue that's too high to be showing that they've been affected. So instead what we've said is they just need to look at the revenue that they had in January and February of 2020, and if they can show those declines against that level of revenue, then they will be able to have access to this support. There will always be businesses who have not been as impacted by COVID-19 that won't be eligible. The plan was to make it so that we are capturing businesses who've had a significant revenue decline. We think that this significantly helps those high growth companies or companies for which they might have been in a situation where 2019 revenues, for whatever reason, were significantly lower than 2020 revenues. But Navdeep, maybe, I don't know if you have a comment.
I think, Bill, Minister Morneau, you've captured it correctly. I mean, the fundamental goal is we recognize when we initially designed the program, there were certain companies that were not eligible. The changes reflected by Minister Morneau now capture more high-growth firms, and that is a key priority for us because these firms continue to give us hope in terms of the ability to grow the economy after this crisis. We have been focused on high-growth firms from day one. We recognize that they're essential both in terms of their ability to attract talent, retain talent, and also create more opportunities for Canadians as well. So as you can see from the costing today as well, the initial costing was around $71 billion for this wage subsidy program. After these changes, it's more generous and it will help more companies, high-growth companies, and that's where the costing is approximately $73 billion. And so this is a clear signal to companies that they can engage with us and CRA to see if they meet the requirements. Of course, each company has a unique set of circumstances, but we've made the program more expansive.
the budget has obtained a draft copy of this legislation, and the January and February 2020 revenue comparison criteria is limited to firms that were not carrying out business on March 1st, 2019. So those are firms that are less than a year old. That is not all high-growth firms. Can you please clarify whether that January and February 2020 benchmark will apply to all firms or just firms that were not in business on March 1st, 2019?
Maybe I'll.
Yeah, so Minister Morneau would speak to that.
So to be clear, firms will have a choice. They will be able to show the revenue decline versus where they were last year at this time, or they'll be able to compare their revenue to the revenue in January and February 2020. So they will have a choice. They're not excluded based on when they started, or they're not excluded on any other basis. They're able to choose the place that is more appropriate for their situation. So I'd like to thank everyone for being with us today. We're going to continue to work on behalf of Canadians to support them through a challenging time. Je voudrais dire merci à tout le monde. Nous allons continuer d'avoir une approche qui va protéger les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Merci. Thank you very much.